Bill's a retired Air Force lieutenant colonel who served as a fighter pilot in combat, as a program element mentor at the Pentagon for the Air Force's huge military budget. After 20 years in the Air Force, he joined a large aerospace corporation where he's had the privilege to manage several $100 million programs. Bill?
Good morning, first responders, fellow citizens, and the firefighter Stephen Coakley Foundation. I'm Bill Fountain, as I mentioned, a retired Air Force Lieutenant Colonel, combat fighter pilot, and defense planner. It is my privilege to be able to speak today in remembrance of the men and women who courageously charged into the burning buildings on 9/11 to save lives. Stephen Coakley was one of the firefighters who perished that day when the towers went down. Steve, along with he was one of 343 firefighters who lost their lives on that dreadful day. Since the summer of 2002, the firefighter Stephen Coakley Foundation has been trying to keep the thought alive of the people like Steve and how they serve their community in hours of need. While this happened 22 years ago, it's fixed in my memory. My wife and I were in Ireland on a tour during the attack, and our bus driver received a call and headed off to the nearest pub where there was a television set. And we watched in dismay, my wife and I, along with the other tour people, as two planes flew into the Twin Towers, one into the Pentagon, and of course the one that crashed in Pennsylvania. Nearly 3,000 people died during those attacks, and many suffer ongoing consequences of that because of the either injuries or because of smoke inhalation. While I am not a firefighter, I do share the duty to serve our fellow citizens like the fire, police, and other first responders. Because we military also serve the communities, and it's our duty that we too may be called to sacrifice our lives for our fellow citizens. Like Steve Coakley, you firefighters and police regularly report to duty anticipating a call that could be anticipated call to it could be to a fire, an accident, or any disturbance, not knowing the severity. And this is done during peacetime, where I wouldn't call that peacetime in my book. This routine, as I said, goes on for years. One local firefighter told me, who was retired from the New York Fire Department, that every day he liked going to work. I served in the Air Force for 20 years, 13 flying fighters, and 7 as a defense planner. Only in combat did I know that I was going to be shot at, either by small arms, surface-to-air missiles, anti-aircraft artillery, or indoor enemy aircraft. With 2 combat tours, most of my missions were in North Vietnam, and I don't recall but only a handful of flights where I was not shot at. We lost about a fourth of each one of those tours. A fourth of my squadron mates were shot down. You're called to duty, you firemen and police and first responders. You're called to duty. You're trained for various different situations and contingencies, but you're always ready to save. And even with the courageous feelings there, even with fear that may enter, you block that out because you're there to save souls and property. On a mission in North Vietnam, north of Hanoi, I found myself in the same situation of being trying to conviction to save others. As our 8-plane formation was departing the target area, a surface-to-air missile popped out of a cloud, moving at 3 times the speed of sound, guiding toward the formation and to the end where I was. It detonated under number 7, Snowball. I fortunately pulled back over the stick as all the debris went underneath my aircraft. Snowball called on the radio, "I'm hit." One of the F2 F4 engines, one of them was out. Our flight lead told me to go ahead and escort Snowball to Da Nang, which was many miles away. I knew that the North Vietnamese listened to our radios, and therefore they were going to be sending up enemy aircraft toward this wounded prey. As the main formation departed, I set up a weave behind Snowball, figuring that they'd have to come in behind me to attack Snowball, and where I would be able to defend Snowball. It was neither bravery nor fear even entered my mind, but the duty to protect Snowball. Fortunately, we landed at Da Nang. He gave me a hug, and there must have been 1,000 holes in the bottom of his airplane, all dripping fluids. The firemen and women of 9/11 gave their duty. They courageously charged into those buildings. The firefighters, police, paramedics, all first responders, I thank you for your service and dedication. I pray that our fellow citizens and political leaders realize the service, the essential service that you provide to our community and to support you. Yes, protect your back. Firefighter Stephen Coakley Foundation, thank you for allowing a retired Air Force colonel, lieutenant colonel, to speak at this Flags of Remembrance ceremony. God bless America, and never forget. Thank you.